Before we continue with the video, if you like what I'm doing here on this channel, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel a lot. Anyway, let's get back to the video. Welcome back to my Exploring Lyra series. In this episode, I thought we could take a closer look to the UI and see how that's working, to see if we can learn something cool from that. In particular, I would actually like to take a look at the health bars. Because if we walk into one of these elimination experiences, we can see that we get some different HUD elements available to us. We have a score up in the top, we have some weapons down in the bottom right, we seem to have some kind of equipment or a grenade over here to the right, but we also have this pretty nice looking health bar. So I figured we could focus on one of these elements and see, can we see how that works and see what we can learn from it, and also see maybe how we can, if we can establish a way to figure out how other UI elements will be explorable by just looking at one of them. So let's start off with how we started the first episode, where we decided that we wanted to figure out how this experience list worked. And going down a rabbit hole of trails there, we discovered that the asset manager keeps track of some different primary data assets, one of which was something that we could find by typing in Lyra user, which would give us all the different data assets related to these experience definitions. And TDM here probably stands for Team Deathmatch, so I'm going to be assuming that this is the one that is connected to the elimination we were just in. And in here we can actually see that it says elimination, so this is correct. We see the map, we see an experience ID, so this is a blueprint connected to the experience. And we see some textures for the map icon, and we see a widget for the loading screen. So from this, I would say the best bet would be to go into the actual experience itself and see what we find there. So here we have a blueprint for the shooter game elimination. Let's open that up. So this is a data-only blueprint, meaning that it only has properties in it. And we open up some of these. Let's see what we have. So there's some gameplay, game features, action sets, actions. We have something called UI. This looks promising. What do we have here? We have a widget class called Score Widget Elimination. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so this is the scoring elimination widget that we saw on the top. So we can see here how that one is actually built. And we can see that there's actually a fair amount of different components in this widget. We can see there's a bunch of progress bars here, for example. So this looks like it is using a material for a circle that is probably filling out around. So that is most likely what's filling around the score parts here. And I'm going to assume we seem to have one over here as well. Yeah, so some pretty cool ideas how you can make the user interface kind of nice looking. In addition to that, I'm assuming we have a bunch of things happening inside of the graph here. We have a bunch of tabs open. Let's move up here and see what we have. So we have a bunch of different events that are doing different things. We can also see there's a bunch of different functions. So this looks like quite a lot to go through. And since I wanted to look at just the health bar for now, I'm going to be skipping this and see if we can continue the search towards the health bar. So the health bar doesn't seem to be available here under the UI for actions. Maybe components. What do we have here? So we have things like cosmetics, picking random characters. So this is the one that I made a video about, like how you can change your character. That's related to that. Team spawning rules. This is related to spawning things in the experience. Team setup. So this is likely going to be a team setup blueprint where you can change the teams if you want to. Bot spawner likely will change how many bots will be able to be spawned and maybe their behavior and such things. Music manager component seems to be handling music. Team deathmatch scoring is related to the scoring, I'm going to be assuming. So nothing here either. Let's see if we find something under abilities. So a granted ability set for elimination. This could possibly be something. Let's see if we find something better. We have an action set. This looks promising. A standard HUD. That seems like it would fit, because most likely a health bar would be on a standard HUD, right? So let's actually check this out. LAS. So this AS stands for action set then, so Lyra action set. So shooter game standard HUD. Let's see what this one has. Features and dependencies. So game features we can enable. So this has a feature called shooter core apparently. In addition to that, it also has actions, and one of them is called UI. That's promising. So we have 11 widgets and 1 layout. Okay, let's open up these widgets and see what this is all about. So we seem to be having a slot ID, a widget class. Okay, so every widget seems to be grouped with a slot ID and a widget class. Let's see if we can find our health here. I don't see any health. So if it isn't here, then maybe it belongs to the layout itself. So we have another widget here for the shooter HUD layout. Let's check that one out then. Okay, this looks promising. So here we see the health bar at least. So we also see a bunch of extension points, which seem to be of the type UI extension point widgets. UI extension. So we have something under the advanced category, which is called a UI extension point widget. And it seems to be configured with something like a gameplay tag. Extension point tag. So you can edit here and set it to be something specific. So gameplay tag has been configured to have these certain things, and I think that this is what... Yeah, okay. So these have slot IDs, which means that you probably assign a slot ID here with a gameplay tag, and then you have one of these extension points which you can place somewhere on your layout, and then your widgets that you have defined over here then will automatically be hooked up into that position in the layout. So you can have one layout essentially that you could theoretically use for a lot of different game modes, and then in different game modes you add these different widget classes and the positions you want them in on a game mode per game mode basis essentially. So you can have like the HUDs looking completely different, but just by changing the configuration of it. That is actually pretty cool and something I will be looking into more in the future for sure. Let's check out the graph for this. Okay, don't put code in this blueprint, it's for layout only. Okay, that probably means then that our code is going to be inside the health bar itself. So our health bar is of the type W health bar. So most likely it's going to be under user created. And there we go, W health bar. Okay, double clicking on it opens it up. So now we're inside of the W health bar. And we can see that it has a bunch of different components, although I don't see a progress bar, which I sort of was expecting. So we have a image of glow, we have some text that is hidden, it says eliminated it looks like. Another image for fill, another image for border, some text for the health itself, a border for the health, number border size box and the horizontal box to just organize things in. A shadow to give it some depth, I'm assuming. Background blur, I'm not familiar with this one, but I'm assuming you get some kind of blurring effect somehow. An overlay to be able to have more than one component underneath here, so you can like stack them on top like they seem to have been doing here, and then ending up with a size box. Okay, so all of this is fairly straightforward except for the part where I don't see a progress bar, but I'm going to be assuming that we're handling that simply with images then. Let's take a look at the graph and see what we have here. Okay. That's a fair bit of things. Okay, let's start from the top maybe. What do we have here? We have a construct, okay. So we're setting some dynamic materials. So we're getting a dynamic material for a border and we're setting it. So we're essentially just storing material IDs variables here, so we can probably manipulate them later, which would explain how they get the progress kind of bar with images. Going back, then we say bind an event on possessed pawn changed. Okay, so essentially, and this makes sense because when you possess a character is usually when you want to have a HUD either created or updated or something of that nature. So this is essentially what we're doing. We're hooking on to the owning player's on possessed pawn changed event so that the UI knows about when the player controller takes over a new pawn, and it doesn't need to have some kind of intercommunication between it other than that. So it can just be a free widget, sort of like an actor component essentially. And then we are getting a controlled pawn and we're calling on possessed pawn changed. So we're essentially saying when we're creating this, we also want to use this as sort of our like initialization to make sure that we have all the values set properly. And then we're gonna be initializing some bar visuals. So again, we have the material IDs here and we're setting some scalar parameter values. So a scalar parameter value is let's see if we can see here. A bar border mid. Bar border mid. No. Let's see. Health current, health updated. Nope. Let's go back to the graph here and see. So the bar border, the bar fill and the bar glow are the actual components in the widget that we make these variables for. So that means these three. So if we look at one of them, let's take the fill one, that seems to be the one that's key here. And we go to the material instance and open that up. This is what we have. And since this is a material instance, we somewhere have a parent. So let's find the parent. Here we have a parent relationship. So we find the material for the parent, which is this one. And this is the material for our border. Okay, this is quite a massive material. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit overwhelming. So let's just gloss over this a little bit. If you want to have a better look at how the material is set up, this is where you want to go and examine it. But I'm going to be assuming that somewhere in this material graph, we have these values, which were, if I can find my way back, let's see here, and we go back to event and initialize. We have something called, for example, health current and health updated, and we're setting those values to 1, which the material then will react upon in different ways. And after that, we are also interpolating a value for our health number, which was our actual number over here. Yes. And we're getting our normalized health and dividing it by, or sorry, multiplying it by 100 and using that as the interpolation value. So, and then we're resetting our animated states, which means we have animations probably as well. Okay, so it seems like we have some further parameters for animate damage and animate damage fade and animate alphas and color change. Let's go back to our widget again. And the widget we have down here, we have next to the content drawer, we have something called animations, which we can click up and we can see that there are in fact 4 different animations. And we have one for damaged, one for healed, one for eliminated, and one for spawned. And these consists of a few different groupings, it looks like. So if you want to see what the animation looks like, you can essentially just click on one and you can drag the scrubber along the timeline and you'll see essentially what will happen. In this case, it seems like on damaged you have a bunch of transform effect, making it look like it's shaking, while you also have a changing coloration of the bar that's being filled, and then eventually it seems to be fading out. On heal, we seem to be having everything is marked green, or it might be very difficult to see, but around from here to the right, you just have a slightly greener tone. And then it seems to be changing its value to whatever value that is. Now this looks like it's being inversed, but I'm assuming that just depends on what kind of value you have as a test. On eliminated, we can see what that does. We seem to be changing the background a bit, and then we're showing a text for eliminated and lighting it up red, and that's it. And on spawned, we have a tiny fill-up effect going on. Okay, so these are the 4 different animations that we have available to us. And seeing that here now, we can also see that we have these parameters here, which we saw over here, like animate glow alpha change, for example. This one was available here on here. So you can see that we are setting values on these parameters here so that we can actually control what the different images will make this look like. So we essentially have a progress bar with the images, like I said earlier. And in case you want to see, it might be a little bit overwhelming to have all of these things interacting at the same time. What you can do when you're working with animations in UI, you can just like click out something like, say, bar glow here. You can right click and unselect active, which means it won't show that, and you can just see what the other effects are essentially doing to get a better view for it. You can also, I believe, probably choose somewhere solo a node, meaning it will only show that node, so you can see something like disregarding everything else if you wanted to. Just if you want to like play around with it and get a better understanding of how this works. Now, it has a value it's changing to, which seems to be, let's see here. So the bar fill, for example, it seems like it's filling up to there. So we have here a keyframe saying animate health new to updated. So we probably have some point where we're actually setting our health to correspond to this parameter. So this is going to be a parameter in our material, most likely, which we'll be setting to our damaged value, I'm assuming, when we take damage. Something like that, it seems. And I'm going to assume then that the healed works in a similar manner. Health new updated. Okay, so we can see here on the keyframe over here, it has a value of 1 here, and a value of 0 here. So these are the values that we're currently working between, and these are probably set to be the default values somewhere in the graph. I'm going to be assuming normalized health. Okay, so we have a new value here which is set to default 0, an old value default 0, and a normalized to 0. So not quite that. We have the animations there, components. Okay. Not entirely sure what it is using to to drive to that specific point here. But we'll move on for now. So let's see what else we have here. Right, so we went to this possessed pawn change now. We have done everything up here. We're doing a sequence where we're doing a few things. We're finding our health component for our old pawn and our new pawn down here. And if we are able to, we unbind a event dispatcher on the old pawn so that we don't listen to its on health changed. So that's good, because you don't want to keep listening to events dispatchers when you no longer have any need for them. So this is essentially saying is we have changed pawn. If we had a pawn, stop listening to its event and start listening to its new events. And then we are setting some normalized values for a new pawn, initializing bar visuals and updating health bar. So let's see what we're doing here. So we're setting these scalar parameter values to be 1. So we're starting up with 100% life. And this one, we have seen all of this before. We've been in that before. So let's see the update health bar, what that one looks like. So this one doesn't do anything. Presumably because you may want to inherit this and like have different update health bar events or functionality going on. What else do we do on the unbinding here? We stop animations and we play animation forward for on spawned. Okay, so we're doing the animation we saw over here. When we have determined that we are leaving one character for a new one, we're playing that animation here. So what about the rest? Okay, here we have a bunch of things. Health changed. Okay, so this makes sense. So health changed here is an event that will be called then over here. Health changed when we get a message from our owner that we have taken a health change. So it could be a damage, it could be a healing, we don't know. And then we're setting our old health and our new health. And then we're setting parameters to make sure that our materials reflect what we wanted to see. So we're sending back our health value here. So this is essentially the progress bar functionality, as is this one. And it's setting the differences between them essentially. So where it is to where it wants to go. Then we're resetting our animated state in case we're probably playing an animation. So if you get hit multiple times, you will have the old animation, if it was playing, stopped most likely. Which is also done then by setting some certain parameter values to be 0 values. In addition to that, we're then moving on to check if our health number is meeting certain criteria here. And we're determining if our health, the new health value that we're going to, is greater than our old health value. If it is greater, then we have healed ourselves. Otherwise, we have taken damage. So these will be our animations, I'm presuming. Could it be? On damage, on health. Yeah, so these names correspond. And it also says widget animation object reference. So yeah, okay, so we're essentially just saying, are we gonna have more or less life after this than we were healed or we were damaged? And it's playing the corresponding animation for it here. And before that we have set a bunch of scalar values. And we also seem to be doing something. Okay, so this is the health number. So this is the actual number here that's representing our health. That one is being updated with first our old value, which is what we're going from. And then we're going to be interpolating that number towards our new value with a certain duration and change rate. So it has a certain speed of how it changes that essentially. Then we're checking if our health value is 0. And if it is, then we are eliminated. Okay, so all of that makes some sense. And we also have the event on eliminated here, which makes us play the elimination animation as well. So that was kind of interesting. I would not have thought that they would have done this without a progress bar, but apparently they have. That's kind of interesting in that way. And it looks really nice. So I really like the style of this health bar. Also, it being a material instance like this means that you can easily just go into the material instance and you can change values around. So maybe if we go for the bar glow, for example, find its material instance. Where is it marking? I'm not entirely sure. Let's try that again. I have no idea where it has marked. Let's do it slightly differently. Let's do it like this way. UI health bar glow is the name apparently. So somewhere in this folder, something called glow. Something called health and glow. Okay, so this one. So this, apparently I've changed something so it wants to save it. But yeah, since this is a material instance and you can see they have exposed a lot of different parameters for us to play with. So something simple would probably be like changing the glow damage, I guess. You could have it be a completely different color if you wanted to. So you can just reuse their material and change it up and you can get a pretty unique look yourself with your UI. And you have glow healing, glow health, glow fills. What are these? Not entirely sure, but apparently that changed a lot of the parameters. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff to play around with here, for sure, if you wanted to and change the look of the thing. Anyway, I hope that this proved educational and valuable for some more insight into the UI inside of Lyra, and possibly, in worst case, give you at least some tools and ways to explore the other UI elements that you might be interested in so that you can discover a little bit more about them. Anyway, that's all for now. Take care. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you did not like it, leave a dislike. Leave any suggestions or comments you have down below. Subscribe and share this video if you want to see more like it in the future. That is all for now. Keep on learning. Take care.